Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Simplifying Life with Kashira. Some moments in life don't roar, they whisper, but those whispers can change everything. Today, we meet someone who listens to them and lives by them. For you, what is one moment in your life that changed everything? Not in a loud way, not with fireworks, but quietly, deeply, like something in you shifted and you were never the same again. That is how I want to start my conversation today with my dear guest. I'm sitting down with someone who is not just wise but quietly powerful. Dale Young, a man who speaks in precepts and principles, who believes wisdom doesn't begin with answers but with being teachable. I could read his bio or tell you how we connected through LinkedIn, but instead, I'd like to ask Dale himself to start this conversation by sharing one moment in his life that changed everything. So, Dale, what thought comes to your mind? What brought that change in your life?
I don't know that I could say there's simply one. I think life is a series of events, and we learn from those events and we grow personally and professionally as a result. But if I was to push for a single turning point, I probably would go back in my career and think of a time when I had gotten turned down for a promotion.
Okay.
And I was convinced that I was ready for that job and I was ready to take on the world. And unfortunately, the people around me didn't agree with that. So when you run into a wall like that, you really have to start making some choices. So one easy out is I'll just be a victim and I'll stumble along and I'll just stay right where I am. That's fine, but 5 years from now, you're going to be in that same place as that same person. So a much better choice is to say, how can I grow personally and professionally and continue to move forward in the face of this? And so that turn point for me, I think really had an impact in that it convinced me that, I really do need to get better. And here's a list of things that I've got to be working on as a professional. And there was a separate list for personal. So anyway, there's a single turn point.
You spoke about the list that you've been working on, personal list, professional list. Do you want to talk a little bit about what list is it and what is it you are still aspiring to change in your life or to make things even better?
Well, a simple example on the professional side, my boss said you really need to be more engaged externally.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't part of the job that I was doing. I was really good at managing internal operations, and that's where I focused.
Uh-huh.
But being asked to look outside and become more externally focused was a change for me. There's an old saying in the development literature that what got you here won't get you there. So it's meaning it's really nice that you've gotten yourself at this point in your career, but if you're not continuing to grow and continuing to develop new skills and new capabilities, you're going to stay right where you are. And so I had to make that choice. So that was an example. I did a 1-year fellowship as a way to get some experience outside of the institution that I was in. That was extremely helpful because it got me outside and got me to look at what are their options. What are some different ways to operate? I did a tour of duty on the local Chamber of Commerce. That had never come across my radar screen at all. So those are some examples of what I did to build up some professional capabilities. You also, the second part of your question had to do with what am I doing now?
Yeah.
I had a 30-year career in higher education. And near the end of that period, my mentor said to me, don't retire, you need to repurpose. Meaning, don't just quit working and stumble into whatever you think you're going to do, but have some purpose, even as you move out of a professional career. And so about a year out, I started that planning, and I had a pretty clear idea about what I was going to do and where we were going to live and so forth. And we moved forward with that. And so, in U.S. terms right now, I'm retired, but I'm as busy as I've ever been, and I'm doing things that I think matter, and I'm living with purpose, on purpose. That's what I like to say.
I hear you. You made a very strong and a powerful point, Dale, when you said what got you here may not get you further. And that throws light on how important it is for us to continue developing and growing ourselves, whether it is professionally or it is personally. Life is all about keep moving. You often speak of wisdom as something learned and not inherited. What were some of the hardest life lessons that taught you that?
I'm old. I've got lots of those to choose from. I guess a simple example. I had a faculty member that I worked with. I was a college professor and administrator. And one of her favorite questions to her students was, how's that working out for you? And so it was a simple way to get that student to think, well, I've made these choices and I've made these decisions. And she was kind of pushing back at them to say, well, okay, how'd that work out? How is your life going now that you made this choice? And so that's really the essence of being wise, is to have life experiences and then to stop and reflect and say, okay, how'd that work out? What did I say? What did they say? How did this situation play out over time? Could I have done something different? On and on that list goes. But basically it's saying, are you learning from life experiences? Are you building experiential insights? That's the essence of wisdom. Now, for me, I'm basing that on my study of the book of Proverbs, which is just one collection of wisdom. But if you look at the fundamentals that Solomon gave in Proverbs, they're pretty universal. I mean, if you take that spiritual piece out about his relationship with Yahweh, what you're left with is the same wisdom that we see in cultures all over the world. And that shouldn't be a surprise, because lots of different people came and visited Solomon, shared with him, and he drew from them. So, okay, simple example. You're responsible for your life outcomes. How many cultures have some version of that life truth? Everybody's mother or grandmother has told you that at some point in your life. And so those are fundamentals that I'm working on. That's what I write about in my blog.
I have seen some of your posts, and that's how when we started engaging and connecting on LinkedIn, it just feels that what you write, it comes from your heart. It comes out something that is giving back to the society, giving back to the world in your own way. And that is a really great way of finding that peace within ourselves. And I'm saying it from my own experience, because when I got on my journey of sharing my content, getting started with my podcasting journey, there is a different level of peace that we get when we are able to help out somebody. How did it start in your life? When did you feel that, okay, maybe, I need to work on this book, or I need to give back to the society. I need to create that ecosystem that I can help out someone. When did you get that thought? Was it like when you were in your corporate career, or once you left it, you had time? How did you get into those thoughts?
This is kind of a long-winded story, and I'll see if I can keep it short. After I hit the roadblock that I had mentioned earlier, I said, I need to continue to grow professionally, personally, and spiritually. So those are three big chunks. So how am I going to pull this off? I had been doing that for years. So it's not like this just fell out of the sky and I'm going to start growth. So what else could I add on? And so what struck me was I was looking for a way to combine my personal spiritual development with my professional development. And as it turned out, reading and understanding the book of Proverbs was an easy way to do it. So whatever your wisdom source is, when you get a handle on that, that's going to drive personal transformation. So while I was still a professional, I started this process. And in parallel with that, I was doing the professional development type things that I've already mentioned. I did the fellowship and I got engaged outside, and I took on probably one of the best professional development techniques I took on was doing interim assignments. Would you be willing to be the interim and you fill in the blank? Sure, I'll do that. So you jump at opportunities to learn some new skills, take on a new position for a short time, and that dramatically expands your professional expertise. So anyway, all that added up, and eventually I got the position that I had been turned down for. So late in my career, that's how I finished off my 30-year career as an academic. And then I've already briefly mentioned, okay, how do I make this swap now? Because I'm not going to work the rest of my life. I worked till I was 70 and then retired. And I said, and I had to figure now what? And then now what is what you've already mentioned. How can I give back? What have I got to share? If you go back, I've been retired for over 5 years. If you go back to the beginning of that, I really thought, I'm going to write about leadership because I've been in a leadership position. I was a business school dean. I got all this stuff I can talk about. Right? Okay, it didn't work out that way. I occasionally mention leadership in my writing, but mostly what I'm talking about now is knowing who you are as a person, and then flowing out of that is, what is your purpose for this particular season of your life? I'm in a very different season now. You're, I don't know, a third my age or half my age. So here's this old geezer in the United States talking to you, but I can still have purpose. It's just not going to be the same as someone that's early in their career like you. So what is that purpose? Figure it out, go do it, and just pursue that with all you got. So anyway, that's how I got to where I am.
Do you have any regrets?
Lots of dumb things. I got lots of bad experiences, lots of poor choices to draw from. So we all have those regrets. The issue is, what are you going to do with them? Are you going to drag them around in a sack on your back for the rest of your life? Or are you going to say, okay, I did that, I made a mistake, but it's not who I am. I can grow and learn and move on from that. Yeah. And so that's really the response you got to be able to make. That how can I move forward? How can I grow out of this?
Yeah. And as you rightly pointed out, Dale, we all make mistakes. And more than mistakes, I would say it's about being bold about the decisions that you think is right in that moment. It may or may not be right. The outcome may be entirely different, but it's about that boldness. You thought this is going to happen and you did that. So less of a mistakes and more of a bold choices is how I like to define my decisions in my life. It may or may not be right for me or somebody else, but then I was sure I had to do that and I did that. So that at least when I am growing old in my life and when I reach to a stage, at least I don't have any regrets, as you rightly pointed out. There should not be anything that I wish I could have done that, but I didn't do it, out of fear, out of risk of not taking decisions. So many of these things we get stuck with. So yeah, I really echo with what you actually said. So I know there must have been a lot of decisions that you count them as either the poor choices or something that didn't work out in that moment. But if you actually have to, speak about any one of those moments, something that could teach younger generation something, would you like to talk about it?
Okay, I'll give you a specific answer, but let me give you a general comment first.
Okay.
In the personal development literature, and you'll see this lots of times on LinkedIn, people will ask a question. If you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what would you say to that younger self?
Yeah.
And as a 75-year-old, my answer is, I wouldn't go back in time. I wouldn't speak to my younger self because my younger self knew it all and he wouldn't listen to anything some old geezer like me has got to say. And so the whole point of that exercise is really wasted because who we were as our younger self is who we were. That's what we were capable of. And we're not going to hear what twice our age self has to say. Yeah. So anyway, there's a generic answer. A specific answer, I made a midlife career change. Mm-hmm. So late 30s, wife, 3 kids and a dog, and I went back to school and got a PhD. And so that was 3 years out of my life, 3+ years in school. The reason for that is I'd spent 12 years in industry, been through several different career changes, and it just didn't work out that well. That's really the bottom line. I was in my blog, I talk about the 7 lean years. We had 5 pretty decent years early in our marriage, and then we had 7 years of financially and emotionally really, really stressful because I was struggling in my career and struggling to figure out, excuse me, who I was going to be when I grew up. And when you're 35, you should be able to answer those questions. And so I made choices and tried things, and they just didn't work. So again, what are you going to do? I got kids at home. I got a wife, and I got to take care of my family. And so my wife and I worked together and said, okay, here's where we're going. And we're going to make this midlife change, and it's going to be really difficult for a few years. So you make bad choices, but you have to figure out a way to recover and then move on. And otherwise, things are never going to get any better. Yeah. You're just going to be living there for the whole rest of your life.
When you started this thought of yours that if you go back and tell your younger self, they may not be willing to hear, or they'll just move in their own direction. 200% agree with that. But I also have this very valid point that is really something that people look forward to hear from our seniors, from people who have lived life, from people who have made mistakes, who have done things in life. So younger generation looks forward to listening to wisdom from such people to understand, okay, what is this person has to say? And so I understand what you said. It is actually a very generic and a common question wherein you'll hear from every direction, what will you tell your younger self? Maybe not your younger self, but the younger generation who is starting out, somebody who is really looking forward excitedly to hear from people who have lived life. So if you have to say anything to them, what would you like to tell them?
I think there are 2 fundamentals that you got to grasp when you start on this growth journey, and one of them has to do with your mindset. And are you humble enough to listen and to absorb what someone who has been there and done that, what they're telling you? Are you humble enough to listen to that, or are you just convinced that you know it all already and I'm going to make this work? And well, okay, go have at it. Okay, so a growth mindset says I've got to be willing to learn. I've got to be willing to listen and to try these other things. So there's one prerequisite for moving into a fulfilled or an abundant life. And for me, the second one is that you really got to take a hard look at your own personal spiritual life and say, am I going to do all this on my own, or am I going to develop a personal relationship with God? And so I get it that people in different cultures answer that question in different ways, and you really need to figure out pretty quickly that you're not the sole source of all the world's wisdom, and you really got to start listening and start responding appropriately. So if you pull those 2 together, this humility, this growth mindset, and then this willingness to look outside yourself to what's eternal and what really matters, because that eternal what matters piece is going to drive your values, and your values have a whole lot to do then with the kind of choices you make. And if your values get muddied, if you're acting without integrity, so this is where all the integrity and the character piece comes in. If you toss that out the window, you're in a whole lot of trouble as a human being. And so you really need to get those 2 right. As a starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you 200%. It's about whether you know it all or you're willing to hear and learn more, of course. And I love what you said about the spiritual connection, Dale. And as you rightly pointed out, there are various religions, various cultures in which the entire world is submerged. But there is something common that connects everyone: humanity, kindness, and spirituality. That doesn't see any religion. There is it's a common connection amongst human beings. Connecting with your soul, connecting with that external source, whether you call them God, you call them energies, you call them universe, different ways of addressing it. But yeah, knowing that somebody is out there to have your back is something really strengthening. I felt it myself in my journey when I was going through a transformation, when I was going through a healing process in my life. Spirituality is something that really gave me power, that gave me wisdom, that gave me deeper understanding of who I am. And I remember we started this conversation wherein you mentioned about how important it is to understand who we are as a person. And until we don't know that, we are somewhere staggered, we're somewhere stuck in our lives. So we need to have good clarity of who we are as a person. It's really inspiring. Thank you for sharing that, Dave. And I'm really excited, getting more intrigued to hear a little bit about your experience of spirituality. When you realized that there is power in spirituality and you started thinking on those lines, was there anything specific that you did to get more aligned with your soul or more aligned with the universe? Anything on those lines, if you could share a little bit of insights on.
I guess I'd like to back up a little bit. I mentioned studying the book of Proverbs and studying the work that Solomon did. I think we need to clarify something. When Solomon talks about wisdom, and I suspect this is true across lots of cultures, that these wise sayings and these fundamentals of wisdom, such as you're responsible for your life outcomes, those kinds of fundamentals. When we say wisdom, we're not talking about our native intelligence. The wisdom literature never has anything to do with how smart you are. Okay, that's not what this is about at all. What wisdom is about is your ability to draw from life experiences, to learn from those experiences, to recognize these fundamental precepts, to recognize these fundamental models that are working out in nature. Simple example from nature. If you look outside, you'll notice there are seasons. Okay, life is cyclical. Seasons come and go. And so if you miss that, you're missing a fundamental. You don't have to be really smart to grasp that, but you do need to be observant and you need to be listening. So now to kind of get to answering your question, that sensitivity to what's around you, the people around you, to the nature around you, to the divine, the creation that's around you, that sensitivity is what's driving you to what I believe are the fundamentals of a wise life. And if Solomon's view of that is that those fundamentals include things like, can I make sense of what's happened? That's as simple as, can I connect the dots in these life events? If you can't, you're going to live in this constant circle of, gee, why did that happen? I don't know. You're going to go do the same thing again. At some point, you got to figure, that's not working out, is it? So you've got to be able to connect the dots. That's one essential skill set. And then second, we've already mentioned, you got to be able to move from experience to insight. Okay, what is this teaching me? What can I draw from this? And those two, I think, are assisted quite a bit by our discernment. And I see around the corner, and I see below the surface. Do I really understand what's going on here? We think of discernment in terms of interacting with other people, but it's also has to do with just functioning in life. I'll give you a simple example. My father was a World War II veteran. He went across the English Channel about 13 days after D-Day, went all the way across Europe into Germany. So he saw lots of combat. He was with one other guy, and they were walking a patrol in this town in Germany. And they walk up to this corner, and my dad says, we should stop right here. And the guy says, no, I want to go around the corner and see what's there. My dad says, we should stop because we're getting too far away from the rest of the group and whatever. The guy says, no, I want to see what's around the corner. He walked around the corner and got shot by a sniper. That was the end of that guy. So, at times we really need to see around the corner, and we need to see below the surface, or we're not going to understand people's motives. We're not going to understand what might happen. That's discernment. That's that ability to look out and to see what could possibly happen here. And so we need those kind of capabilities, and sense making Experiential insight and discernment have nothing to do with how smart I am. It's all about my willingness to learn and to draw from life. That's what wisdom's all about.
Yeah, that's heart touching and very insightful. Thank you for sharing that. I'm just getting reminded of our LinkedIn message, and you mentioned about your wife. I hope she's good. She's doing better now.
Yes, she's much improved.
Yeah, yeah. God bless her. So you mentioned about her, and then you also mentioned that you've stopped posting on LinkedIn since last year.
Since December.
Since December last year, yeah. So you mentioned that to look after your wife. I actually wanted to know and understand from you, especially when it comes to getting engagement on social handles or LinkedIn, Instagram. Let's talk about LinkedIn. People want to be consistent. They want to be like posting every day so that their engagement is not getting killed. There's this thought, there's this feeling that once you stop posting, people may forget you. It's all about being relevant. It's about being current, being visible every day. Otherwise, yeah, you may lose the engagement. So I wanted to understand from you, what is your thought process behind it? Do you think this kind of approach can really stress out people to be out there every day, to keep posting, to keep looking for the engagement and being relevant? Has it ever bothered you? I mean, I can see you've got quite a good LinkedIn followership. I think around 9,000, 10,000 followers, if I'm not wrong over there. I'm sure you built it with a lot of your posts, your regular engagement. But did it ever bother you that, oh God, it's getting too much? Or maybe, I don't want to be active on it every day.
I had cut back to one post a week. And the reason for that is I respond to every comment on my post. That takes a long time. So I was posting on Monday mornings, and that basically blocked out. I would post at 9:00 Eastern U.S. time. Mm-hmm. And then I would sit the next 2 to 3 hours answering comments. I didn't get hundreds of comments, but they were some fairly deep discussions. And so for me, the issue wasn't, am I getting, lots of busy stuff? Mm-hmm. I'm really interested in, can I find people to engage with and share what's important to me? So if you flip that, then when I comment on someone's post, I'll only comment when I've got something of value to add. So if you're asking me about, do you need to post every day? Okay, that's way outside my expertise. I read stuff that says yes and stuff that says no. But for me, what worked was I can handle one post a week and have significant interactions with people. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for depth, not breadth. So that's the way it plays out for me. Does that mean that you reduce your chances of sharing? Well, sure. And a simple example would be, you run into people that say, well, I'm reading a book a week. And almost invariably will think, oh, okay. Can you absorb that much material in a week? I don't believe that. Not after being in higher ed for 30 years. I just don't think you can absorb that much material. You can skim through a book in a week. Oh, sure, anybody can do that. But are you absorbing it? Is it transforming you? I don't think so. I just don't think you can pull in that much.
It's challenging. It's very difficult. You can't really absorb so much of content every day. And on every social handle, there is tons of content being posted across. We have to understand and filter out what is relevant for us and what is it that we're looking for, something that can add value. And as you said, you were looking for depth in the conversation. For people who are starting out, who do not have that kind of engagement, I think they have to post every day. I mean, as per the pattern of different social media platforms, whatever is needed. Yeah, having that genuine connection with people is something that really brings value. Whether it is one person engaging or two people engaging with your post, it's about how much value you're bringing through the work that you're doing. I think that is something that really greater impact.
Yeah, agreed.
You've spoken about so much about your life, your challenges, what shaped you, about your thought process. Looking back, was there anything that you were really scared of in your life, or is there any fear that you still have in your life?
You know, I mentioned a midlife career change and going back to school to get a PhD.
Yeah,
That's a risk. About half the
yeah,
people who start PhD programs don't finish for all kinds of reasons. And I saw people
yeah,
drop out of the program I was in, and those programs are highly selective. It's not easy to get in. And
yeah,
even with hard to get in, half of them aren't going to make it. And so, but yeah, I get that was a risk. I understand that.
yeah,
There's a fear. As a new parent, you have a fear. I'm not being the perfect parent. Okay, but you still got to get up in the morning and be a parent to that kid. So there's all kinds of fears like that in life, and you still have to face it and say, okay, how am I going to move forward? Otherwise, I've already said this 2 or 3 times. You're going to stay stuck where you are. If
yeah,
that's the way you want to live your life, then you're going to wind up at the end of your life, like you mentioned earlier, with these regrets that say, I wish I had, and then you fill in the blank because you never
yeah,
did it. And a simple, an example that probably stretches across almost everybody's life would be having hard conversations. Those are really unpleasant. They could be about someone that has done something wrong to you, or you have a strong disagreement with someone. You can fill in the blank, but maybe you're a supervisor and you got to tell an employee that their performance isn't up to par, and you're going to have to let them go. Whatever the hard conversation is, that's
yeah,
a fear. I just wish this would go away so I don't have to talk to this person. Well, you're going to have that conversation, whether you like it or
yeah,
not. And so all of us have to face that fear of those hard conversations. Do we get better at it over time? Yeah, maybe, but you really got to just be willing to step out and do it and force yourself to push through this, because what does it matter? What really counts here? How is if I don't have this conversation, what is lost to our organization or to this relationship or whatever it is? You have to understand you've got to do that. That's important.
yeah. Has aging ever scared you, Dale?
No, it's going to happen no matter what. And so I guess I'm enjoying this season of my life. We enjoy our children. We enjoy our grandchildren. I'm involved in volunteer activities. I think what I've got to share on LinkedIn and in my blog are of value. And so I feel like I'm giving back. My volunteer activities are keeping me busy, and I feel like I'm having an impact. So aging doesn't bother me. That said, you do need to be careful about fundamental disciplines. At your age, you probably think you're indestructible, but the reality is you're not. And so
Yeah,
do the fundamentals. Watch what you eat, exercise, stay on a regular sleep schedule, give yourself time to recover. Okay, we know that those things are important. The older you get, the more critical it is that you do those things.
yeah. You are an early riser. You woke up at 6 a.m. your time today. And you're having a conversation. I mean, it's unimaginable. I could never do that. Like waking up at 6 itself is like climbing the mountain for me. And being ready for a podcast conversation, it's like a big thing. So has it always been with you? Have you always been an early riser? Or
Yes,
yeah, have you always been an early
it's
riser?
just whatever time clock you're on. My wife is on the opposite clock. So she's not an early riser. She's not up until now 7 o'clock or later. This morning, it was a pretty typical morning. I got up at 4:30. I exercised for about 45 minutes or so, shaved, and drank some water so I could be ready for this 6 o'clock interview. It's when I get off of this call with you, I'm going to go for a short walk. That's just part of daily disciplines. If you're not an early riser, don't worry about it. You need to know enough about yourself that you can say, when am I at my best?
Yes.
Whatever your position in life is. So for me, it would be, when do I do my best writing? When do I do my best thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. And so it doesn't matter how the times are shifted during the day. For me, if you're an early riser, that means you're going to be in bed every night by 9 o'clock. That's just, to get 7 hours sleep. You're going to wake up at
Yeah.
4:30. You got to go to bed early. So it's how you push those hours out isn't the important thing. The important thing is to know yourself enough to know, when am I at my best? Where do I need to focus? Where do I need to say no to everything else so I can do this most critical thing for me? That's where you've got to focus.
That is a really powerful statement, because so many people, they stress themselves out, not understanding that people have different sleep cycles, and everybody is not an early riser. uh, I speak about it so much through my podcast channel that it is, I know we've all heard about those 4 a.m. clubs, 5 a.m. clubs, all these successful and rich people, disciplined people who wake up at 5 a.m., 3 a.m. But if you're not that person who can wake up with all your full sense at that time, there is no point in forcing yourself to be rising early. It will not make you successful. I have said it so many times and I'll not get tired speaking about it, because it is a very important message for people to understand. You cannot force yourself. Uh, the only thing you'll end up doing is you'll end up being sick. I am living example. I've done it. I have never been an early riser. I got into an organization where the office started early in the morning, like 8 a.m. And to be at workplace at 8, you have to be up by 5:30, max by 6, get ready and everything. So, and I did that work for 3 to 4 years. Even after doing that consistent cycle of 3 to 4 years, waking up at 5:30, I still couldn't adjust my sleep cycle according to that. It was like towards the end, I used to wake up and cry in my bathroom. I was like, no, it's not happening, it's not happening. And it was all chaotic, and I was unable to think because I wasn't getting that peaceful sleep. What happened, I ended up being bedridden. And then I had to take that hard decision that I need to work out of this work profile. So, with my example, I really want to urge people that please understand what your sleep cycle is, how your body responds, and try to make things work for you according to that, so that you're at your peace. Our life's ultimate destination is not that success that we are looking for, it is the journey that we are going through. Are you happy today? Are you at peace today? If not, what is the point? You don't know if you'll see tomorrow, right? But at least make your today the best you can. That is something that should be our objective for every day when we wake up, that all right, another exciting day and we have to live. So follow.
I talk about living in balance. And
Okay.
you gave a great example when you use the word chaos.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not being your authentic self, your life is going to be chaos. You've
Yeah.
created that outcome of chaos by the choices you've made. And if that's not who you are, it's never going to work in relationships, in a job, no matter what. It's not going to work.
Yeah. Being authentic, being genuine to yourself is a superpower, Dale.
Yes, I like to say begin with who. I know that's not the book title, but that's the focus of Psalmist teaching is you really need to understand yourself, figure out who you are and go do that. Be that person.
Understand who you are and then move ahead, then do things. Say no to what you don't want to do. Say yes to what you want to do. Don't let your fears overpower you. Don't let anybody else decide for you. That's super. Thank you so much, Dale. You just added some great insight to our conversation today. And I know it's morning, you have to go for a walk, so I won't keep you long. But I really appreciate all your time and all your insight. And while we are concluding, is there any final words or thoughts that you'd like to put out for people who are going to listen to us?
If I would walk away with one thought, it would be that knowing who you are, knowing that authentic self is essential to life, to being authentic and to enjoying fulfillment. Once you've figured that part out, you're clear about who you are and how your life is going to play out, then you've positioned yourself to start talking about your life purpose. We haven't mentioned that topic at all here, but until you know who you are, you're going to struggle with purpose. So begin with who, then you're positioned to live with purpose on purpose. So begin with who and then know your why. And then you can set goals and you can start chasing after life.
Yeah. Begin with who to find your why. Wow. Really powerful and truth of all our existence. It's always important to understand who are you. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dale, for sharing that insight once again. And all of you wonderful people listening to us or watching us. Sometimes we look for wisdom in big books, loud voices, complicated answers. But then someone like Dale reminds us that wisdom is quiet. It begins with being teachable. I'll carry that with me today, that life doesn't ask us to be perfect or fearless or loud. It simply asks us to be authentic, to be open, to change our who so we can find our why. That's wonderful. Dale, thank you so much for your honesty, your presence, your heart, and to everyone listening. If this episode moved you, share it with someone who is navigating life's big question right now. This is Kashira, and this is Simplifying Life. Until next time, keep growing and keep listening. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Dale.
Thank you.